So, Mark, I'm so excited. You're like my biggest repeat celebrity guest at number 3. Like, this is the best. Like, you're becoming like a regular thing. You're going to be my Tony Kornheiser here pretty soon. Like, you just
I, I'm the king. I'm the king of guests, the king of all guests.
well, you do a decent job hosting yourself. You've been putting out that podcast and all that content that you've been doing for so long now. Business is growing.
We're in our podcast. We're in our 9th year.
Yeah, you even migrated your co-hosts over the years.
Yeah. That was a big decision. Because I grew the show, became very popular with Tom and Tom Webster, and then Tom. We had no agreement, right? We didn't know how long it would go, and we were, I think, in year 6 or 7. And Tom said, "We've got this show. We're talking about marketing. I'm not really even in marketing anymore. I'm having a hard time keeping up. So I think we need to think about another plan." And what I realized, Roger, was that it was something I love to do. I love to do it. And there's a lot of equity in this audience that I built, and so I wanted it to continue. And so I found another great co-host in Brooke Sellis, and we're in our 9th year now.
Yeah. And count me amongst your loyal listeners. There's always something for us to consider as practitioners of the craft when it comes to what you and Brooke talk about. So, Mark, man, your content has been so prolific. And, you've got yet another book, Cumulative Advantage, that's out right now. And we're certainly going to want to talk about that. But there's this little itch that you and I both have witnessed that is going on that we really wanted to kind of pinpoint this morning. And if you go back and listen to the last few episodes of the show, first and foremost, what I think would be interesting is, can you imagine had you stopped that show pre-COVID? And how everything is so dramatically different in comparison to those kinder, gentler, more innocent days of COVID and all of the episodes of the podcast that you might listen to back then.
Yeah.
Versus the topics that get covered today, right? I mean, things are vastly different out there.
Vastly different. And Roger, this is something that I've been thinking about a lot and studying a lot. And, on one level, on a human level, I mean, this is certainly a time to pause and just appreciate what you have. I mean, I had COVID. I got pretty sick with it early on. And so, I mean, that gives you a new appreciation of life. And I had to sort of reinvent my business. That gives you a different appreciation. And it was a reset. And what I look at is, I don't even look at any data before 2020. I think looking at any research report before 2020 is fruitless because literally so much has changed. So on a human level, this is really a hard time. From an academic level, there's probably been no more exciting time to be in business, because every time, and this is one of the things I talk about in my book, as you know, is that every time there is a shift in the status quo, a fracture in the status quo, there's a business opportunity. In the Cumulative Advantage book, I call this the seam, right? So look at our world. Literally everything we do to live is being reimagined. Right. How we work, where we work, how we learn, how we connect, how we have a whole new relationship with food. If you can imagine, the number of applications to culinary school doubled this year. Why? Because people are cooking at home and they learn that they like it and they're good at it. They've invented a new way to make bread, right? So everything, how we teach our children, how we work out, how we entertain ourselves, and every one of these shifts is a business opportunity. And it is absolutely energizing and exciting. There's been no more fascinating time probably in the history of business than right now. and we're in an era of unintended consequences. I think we're going to talk about one of those coming up here in a minute. But we guessed wrong, Roger, about everything going into the pandemic, right? Who would have guessed we'd have a building boom? We'd run out of lumber. Who would have guessed that the shelves would be empty of Clearasil acne medicine because people were wearing masks and it made their face break out? We guessed wrong on everything. And we're going to guess wrong on everything coming out of this, which is a time we need to really listen right now. We need to watch the trends and the news and be mindful of these shifts that mean opportunity. I mean, it's happening every single day. It's happening almost every minute of the day. The opportunities, to me, seem almost overwhelming.
Yeah, that it's almost palpable.
Yes,
there's
it is.
Friction, right? So on the one hand, those of us who are entrepreneurially minded can sense the opportunity, and yet most of us are not equipped, prepared, ready to take advantage of those seams that you're talking about, because you know, in a humming economy, it's a little bit more challenging to find those seams.
Yeah.
But because this economy is changing so dynamically, those seams are presenting themselves in magnitude and order on a really regular basis. And it's those of us who see them and say, I got to get myself in that seam, but I need these inputs, and maybe my supply chain is broken or doesn't have the staff that it used to have to be able to afford me this opportunity. So it's a palpable discussion, right? Where people are saying, like, I sense this opportunity, but I think the other seam that goes along with the ones you've identified, Mark, has to do with employment.
Yeah.
And this has a lot to do with this. You brought an article to the discussion in the Wall Street Journal about the fact that people do not want jobs in sales anymore. So you want to kind of touch on that a bit, and we'll peel that one apart and kind of talk about everything.
But before we do, I just want to build on your comment, because you said something very, very important there that I don't want it to get lost, is that you're right. When the economy was like sort of stable and booming, the 2019 days, we sort of maybe got in a groove, right? And we didn't even have to, reconsider what's going on in the rest of the world. And that is I think the number one benefit of this cumulative advantage book, that when you see the pattern, how momentum is created, you'll never see the world the same way again, right? So every time you read a news article, or you meet someone successful, or you read a case study of a successful business, you'll say, okay, how does this apply to the cumulative advantage book? Oh, yes, I see it. I see it. I see it. So understanding the pattern is the first step to adjusting to this new way of life. So I just wanted to sort of emphasize what you said there. It's very important. Now, one of the things that's so amazing, Roger, I saw someone post on Instagram the other day. I don't know if I want to go back to work or move to Italy and start over. Now, on one level, it's like, ha, 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 ha. But on another level, there's a lot of people really thinking about these things right now. I can't tell you how many professional speakers I've talked to who have said, I don't know if I want to go back on the road.
Yeah.
I've sort of, look what I've lost. I mean, one of the things I've found, I was traveling virtually every week. Now that I'm staying at home, I'm so much more productive.
All right.
Oh my gosh. All that time I spent in planes and hotels and airports. Wow. Am I using that time to do good for the world now, right? And I think a lot of people they've got different goals of what they want in life. I think that some of the ideas that are embedded in this article that we looked at, that said young people especially don't want to go into sales. Part of it is maybe a misinterpretation of what sales is. Maybe it's a bad reputation because sales means cold calls. It's an unsteady income depending on commissions. Now, I want to tell you, my stepson recently, he graduated from his master's degree last April.
Yeah.
Right? And so he really struggled to find any sort of career, and he landed a job in sales. I mean, he is killing it. He's killing it. It's his first job out of college. He's having $20,000, $20,000 a month in commissions, right? How many people can do that when you're, that age?
Right.
So, but it really is interesting. I think if we didn't have this reset in the pandemic, I'm not sure we'd be going through this existential crisis in sales right now. The fact of the matter is, the research shows there are more job postings for sales really than any other time in the history of business, and they're not being filled. And it's part of because this reset. One of the other things that's happening is that because of the extended unemployment benefits, people are taking longer to apply and to assess and to choose. They never had that luxury before, because if you lose your job, you got to find another job.
Right.
Now it's like, maybe I'll take my time. Maybe I'll figure out what I really need to do. I think that weighs into this too, Roger. So, so what do you think about it? I'd like to hear your views about how's this gonna resolve. It's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Right?
It absolutely. There's so many underlying economic factors that are going to be driven by this gap that we're talking about right now, because there's not butts in chairs, then revenue is not coming into the organization. If there's revenues not coming into the organization, it makes the resources of that organization more scarce. So that's going to drive their buying decisions in a time when most of us are desperate to buy things. And add in the fact that there's this pent-up demand from the liquidity in the system, and the fact that so many people want to buy things that can't be bought. That's going to drive up inflation. So prices are going to go up higher. So all of these things have a way of weaving into the fabric of the problem. And to me, I was pointing to even pre-pandemic, during the boom of 19, there were many people that were just accepting things that they probably weren't completely happy with as business owners or people who ran businesses. Like, there were some suppliers who probably really weren't getting the job done. There were customers that maybe were not your best customers, but because business was so good, everybody just focused on getting orders out the door and spent more time working in their business than really working on their business at all. And like, when I look at, so we have this amazing crush of pent-up demand for talent. And yet, if you look at an average job posting, it looks like it was written in 2002. So in reality, if you have a posting out there from an organization that really hasn't done much to reflect the change since the pandemic, and systemically our organizations haven't taken the time to reconsider the way they might want to cast what it is that the people in their sales functions actually do.
Yes.
Then you've got people sitting there going, well, why the hell would I want to do that? That sounds terrible. Right.
That's a very wise observation. Very wise observation, that you've really got to somehow conform to the culture and the expectations of the workforce. It's being really just sort of kind of just shoved at us, right? And we can't necessarily buy our way out of this problem. Salary isn't the main thing for a lot of people right now. Commission may not be the main thing right now. If you've gone through a period where your world has been turned upside down, maybe it's stability. Maybe it's the ability to work remotely. Maybe it's the ability to, maybe it's time off. Maybe you're still homeschooling children. How can I be in sales and homeschool children, right? That's reality.
Yeah.
And so I think it's not just going to be a problem that companies are going to be able to buy their way out of. They're going to have to make the adjustments to. It's exactly like I said. This is a time to be patient, to connect with the new trends, to listen and to learn and to be humble. I think humility is a very important soft skill right now, to just say, maybe I don't know everything right now. We're in a different world. I need to be humble and just be patient and listen and learn.
Yeah. So it's interesting how your books have had a way of sort of compounding one another over the past few books that you wrote, because right now I think you could tell people anything you want to tell them in the world about who you are as an organization, and they're going to go ask their friends. What do you think about this company?
Exactly.
What do you know about them? Because I think, to your point, it's kind of like in our industry, in the promotional marketing industry, almost the entire supply side sales force was let go. This is thousands of people.
Wow.
And most of them are in their mid 40s to 60. And this is all they've ever done their entire lives.
Yeah.
We've watched these people have to make very difficult decisions about, like, there's a very good possibility that the job I used to have will never come back. So what am I going to do now?
Right.
And the answer that I repeatedly get from most of the people that I know who are faced with that situation, they say, well, if I'm going to be broke, I'm going to pursue something I actually love.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's why I think a lot of like the job postings, those aren't things that people would love. Those are just jobs that pay money. So
it's the same job we had in 2019.
Right.
Yeah.
So to me, I think there's kind of there's two pieces of this. There's the marketing rebellion side that Mark Schaefer wrote that said the marketplace is going to tell you what your message is, so you should be listening to it. And then part two of that is known, where if you've already established yourself as a brand that has the kind of values that someone who's looking for the thing that they love to do can be found, you're going to have a much better chance of getting not only a person, but probably somebody who is a little bit more talented than you would have ordinarily gotten, and probably who cares a little bit more about the job because their values are in alignment with yours. But if businesses don't take the time, one, to communicate what their values are, and two, create an understanding at the actual day-to-day level of what it is you're going to do in a sales job, then they're going to really struggle. I mean, I don't see it fixing itself.
You know, you just spurred a big idea in me. I mean, you just really sort of hit on something quite remarkable. So what I was talking about was momentum begins when we look at what are we good at, what are our advantages, how do we apply that to a shift? Now, what if a company became the shift?
Uh-huh.
All right. So you're saying, okay, here's the problem. We've got all these people. We can't fill sales job. What if we shifted the way we recruit, hire, retain, compensate our salespeople? So we're creating this shift in how we work, and then people come in and fill that seam. I hadn't really thought about it that way before, but why not become the change? Why not become the beacon and create that seam where people will be attracted to that? I think that's interesting.
In Red Goldfish promo edition that I co-authored with Stan Phelps, one of the big tenets of the book is this thing called a trust continuum, which is the idea that the journey from know, like, and trust is from know to like to trust is not a straight line. It's more like a pyramid.
Yeah.
And most organizations' sales departments have not made a mental shift to help their salespeople recognize that their job primarily is to recognize where they are in the trust continuum with that prospect at that moment, and what are the activities that they're supposed to be doing when they recognize that that's where they're at. That's where sales is today, in my opinion. And we've not yet at the field sales level, we've not been able to create an environment for those people to recognize that that's what their job is. And so that's why we focused on it so intently in the book, was like, look, this is, especially in post-pandemic, you talked about humility. We called it humanity. Like, if you don't start with trying to get an understanding of where the person is that you're talking to on what happened,
Yeah.
you run the risk of creating, like, you're going to get off on the wrong foot right on the first moment.
Yeah.
So if you begin that whole process of understanding, like, that's where we start. When we're in a weak trust relationship, we got to start with humanity. And if we could just start there, I think, I could build a 12-step program that maybe somehow somebody could then go from know to like to trust by looking for signs of that evolution on the part of the other person that you're dealing with. And if we could just get people there, I think, Mark, we'd be able to get butts in chairs. But more importantly, and kind of this is what Marketing Rebellion was really all about. The market will tell you if you're that kind of company. And if you're not, then you're probably going to hear either nothing or something to the contrary, which is even worse.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's happening a lot right now, because if you're not really, it's more than adjusting. It's sort of like morphing
Right.
to conform to the expectations today. You're going to be anachronistic. I think that's sort of what you're hinting at when you're saying what people are advertising for these days. It's a 2019 job. And I just can't emphasize that enough, is that, if you've got a culture and a business philosophy based on 2019, it's maybe it's okay, but maybe it's not. It's really a time to just reevaluate everything, and see if the culture is the problem, not the job posting.
Yeah. Yep. So, and to me, what better way to figure out where you are culture wise than to sit down all your people in a room and start talking about culture.
Yeah.
And I think for many, many, many folks, it's kind of like going to the gym. It's like, I know I'm a little overweight. I know that I probably should get to the gym, but that requires something that I'm going to have to commit myself to. And while I do want the outcome, I'm just not exactly sure that I want to commit myself to the exercises that are going to be necessary in order to get myself to that place. And yet, to rewind the tape all the way back to the beginning of discussion, we said, if you do this, there are seams, people.
Yeah,
there are money to be had.
There's
if you
so much going on out there. There really is. It's just overwhelming. And I think, you have a really powerful message here that, I wrote in the Marketing Rebellion book, that your culture is your marketing.
Right.
Because that's the story that gets out into the world. And so, I think it's an interesting idea, Roger, that really does a successful sales strategy depend on really digging deep and evaluating your culture and saying, do we have the right culture? And that has to come from the top. The leader of the company, the person that owns the strategy and the budget, they determine the strategy. So this is a leadership issue. Ultimately, there's no such thing as a grassroots cultural change. Even if you see your company's falling behind, the leader of the company has to be the one to make the changes in the culture. So it all kind of goes together.
So, and I think even for me, like an example, once you get accustomed to having made this shift, right? So I'm sure you can sense from the words that are coming out of my mouth that I'm speaking from like our own playbook.
Yeah.
And it's easier for me because this is kind of the way we built ourselves in the beginning, but how it parlays itself into like actual day-to-day business activity is we have a team of 4 salespeople right now that are working for us in various capacities. And when I was looking for the talent that I wanted to put into those roles, we said nothing about it being a sales job. Well, we basically positioned it as those are market research jobs.
Oh, interesting.
Because we're a relatively young company that needs a lot of data from our prospect base to understand how to better dial in our solutions to solve the problems we think they solve even better. Mm-hmm. And if I can get people actively going out and soliciting the information about the problems that our prospective customers have, then it gives me a chance to then come back to them proactively without them even asking us for it. Something that we've already made that says, hey, we heard what you said about what your problems are. Does this help?
Yeah.
Right. And to me, when I can go recruit someone who's curious and asks good questions and isn't afraid to have interpersonal dialogue. And I arm them with the idea of, if they tell you no, it's fine. It's part of the research. It has a way of changing the dynamic of that role for the person in a way that has them go, hey, that doesn't sound so scary, And if other organizations can adopt a similar strategy where it's like, well, yes, it is about bringing revenue into the organization, but is that really what that person does every day? Or is it something different than that? And can you position it in a way that would be more identifiable with this new demographic? That one is already somewhat scared of sales, or two, people who are in job transition who don't want to go back to boiler room, who don't want to have to make 100 cold calls, right? So it's just a matter of doing the work, in my opinion.
Yeah, it gets back again to this big idea that you sort of proposed, is how do you become the seam? What's going through my mind is the number of people right now who are struggling, where they're going to do homeschooling. So what if you created opportunities, and it's not for everyone, of course, but if you created a job that said, this is the perfect job for because you can do it any time of day or night.
Right.
And, this is perfect for a homeschooling parent. You create the seam, right? Because you just position this in a context that's relevant for our times.
I dig it. To me, I think we just built the case for a whole new company. You're going to write the business plan. No, I'll write the business plan. You're the marketing guy. So we'll let you market the idea. I'll get the business plan together, and we'll have more employees than anybody else in any other industry.
That's right. We could be fueling all these. Yeah. We could. Yeah. We'll bring in all the salespeople that you need.
You got it. So, Mark, if we wanted to get people in front of Cumulative Advantage, and talk about your blog real quick too. I think that's, in my space, I don't know a lot of people who are familiar with what you do on a blog side of things. So talk about those two things, and then we'll let the people get back to their day.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me on your show and having this amazing conversation where, I'm taking notes. Some of the things you talked about are going to become blog posts.
All right.
So, the book is Cumulative Advantage. And the reason that I wrote it is because, and as you said, it really is a continuum of my other work, right? And I think what I've been obsessed with over the last decade is, how do you stand out? How can you be seen? How can you be heard in this world of overwhelming information density? And I think a lot of people out there are doing their best work. They're doing great work, and they're still being buried. And so we need to consider this idea of momentum. And as it turns out, there is a science, there is a pattern to building momentum. And that's the problem this book solves. It takes research that's been kind of hidden away in sociological academics for decades, and it brings it to light. It's it's a very well-researched, data-driven book that says this is how it works. And the thing that's exciting is that to create this momentum, you don't need a PhD. You don't need $1 million in the bank. You don't need to come from a famous family. This is accessible to everyone. You just need to know how the pattern works. Now, the blog is something I'm very proud of. I've been blogging, I think, 13, 14 years now, I think. And I think I had a streak of, I've actually blogged 650 weeks in a row.
Wow.
And finally decided, I needed to take a mental health break in January. I went to a beach for a month. But now I'm back at it, starting a new 650 week streak.
Wow.
And I love it. I mean, I just love it. It's a great intellectual challenge, because the thing that's in my mind with every piece of content I produce, whether it's the blog, the podcast, a book, or whatever, is I will never let you down. This is going to be a piece of content that is worth your time. It's relevant. It's interesting. It's timely. Maybe it's even, funny or entertaining, but you're going to like it. It's going to be worth your time. And to be able to do that on a consistent basis is so much fun for me. And I have so many ideas. I think I have 275 ideas I've never even written in a blog post yet.
Wow.
And so I can't overwhelm people, but it is something that I'm proud of. And you can find that all at businessesgrow.com. Most people can't remember how to spell Schaefer. That's why it's not Schaefer.com. Most people can remember Businesses Grow. And if you can remember that, you can find my blog, my podcast, my books, and a bunch of other helpful stuff I give away for free.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not even going to tell you how long I've been reading your blog. The thing that I find to be like, if I was going to say this to you, it's already been said to you. But the time the woman said that she gets up and makes her coffee and reads your blog, yeah, that's like, there's just people that you can start your day with if their message resonates with you in a way that makes you want to come back, right? And going back to that trust continuum, Mark, and then we'll let people go on the way from know, like, and trust. What we say in weak relational moments, you have to do 4 things. 1 of 4: educate, inform, entertain, or inspire. And I think that your blog does all of those things. And that's what makes it so incredibly valuable, because when people do more than one of those 4, it has a way of making it more sticky in the lives of the people who are consuming it. And I would say that I am definitely in your camp when it comes to you checking a number of those boxes for me on behalf of the content that you create. So I thank you for that. I thank you for coming back again. Hopefully we'll get you back again sometime soon after the crazy thing in the world happens.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Roger.